Bang! Neeves Knives. I'm Jared, and today's video is 7 great work knives. I'm not saying they're the best of all, but they are definitely great work knives. I've worked with them, so these are knives that I would recommend to people if they were looking for a work knife. Now, what kind of work? I'm going to give different options because I know there are different kinds of work. You know, I try to go more towards labor because that's usually how you're using your knife, but it can be kind of versatile and universal. So, starting this off, we have the Giant Mouse Ace Grand. Now, these are discontinued. You can't get these anymore. Mine's actually got a little bit of lock stick. Haven't decided if I'm going to fix it or not, but Elmax steel, I love this knife, but it is discontinued, so I can't really recommend it, even though, man, it's such a good knife. Great ergos, just an amazing knife. The clip works great, but can't get it. So what do I recommend? The TWOSUN TS223. I absolutely love working with this knife. It's one of my top choices to grab for just about anything. Because, and you're probably wondering, like, what is this? How is this similar? Well, what you're not seeing is, look at the blade shape. Put it right on top of it. They have a very similar cutting edge. The geometry is also very similar. This has a robust spine with a nice tall flat grind that gets nice and thin behind the edge. This thing cuts extremely well. And it comes in M390. It used to come in 14C28M, but those are getting harder to get. Nice, robust frame lock, so it has a nice strong lockup. The clip works great. The action's great. Ergos are amazing. Has internal stop pins, ceramic caged bearings on a track. It's just an amazing knife, and for work, amazing, because it has the type of blade shape that works for just about everything. You know, where you can use the tip really good. You have a little bit of belly. You can do nice push cuts. Great slicing. Fantastic choice. I can't recommend this enough, especially for work. Next. The Sebenza, the Chris Reeve Knives Sebenza. Now, I know a lot of people are not going to spend $450 for a work knife. I get that. But if you can, this is an amazing work knife. Nice and strong lockup, super solid, beautiful blade shape and grind. The geometry and blade shape is great. Really tough knife, USA made, great warranty. But I know $450 is hard to swallow for a work knife, so I recommend the GAYLE Bradley. The GAYLE Bradley is a great knife. Now, it is more of a spear point than a drop point, but these are similar in a lot of ways. The nice hollow ground blade. We have M4 steel, nice tough steel, super thin behind the edge, like 10 thousandths behind the edge. The tip, we have a little swedge up here to add a little bit of strength towards the tip. The ergos are super comfortable. Now, the one bad thing about this is that you do have to modify the lock bar. You do have to shave this down a little bit, but if you have the ability to do that, I totally recommend this. You just have to cut this back just a little bit so that you have access to the lock bar. The detent is also very weak, but, you know, kind of similar where, you know, the action's more of a slow rolling action on a Sebenza. These two have a lot in common, except for this is about $180 and this is $450. So I totally recommend the SPYDERCO GAYLE Bradley 2. Next, the BENCHMADE GRIPTILLIAN, whether it's the large or the small, either way. But my personal opinion, I like the sheep's foot, but you could go with the HOGUE Ritter RSKMK1 if you like the thumb studs. Both are great, or just the regular BENCHMADE GRIPTILLIAN, but this one comes in 20 CV, G10, better material, so it's kind of a no-brainer. Both are USA made. However, a lot of people don't like access locks, but let me just argue with you for a second. If your argument is Omega springs break, buy an extra set of Omega springs. Hell, buy 2 extra sets. They're like $6 on Etsy. You can have them laying around. Omega springs don't break that often. Yes, they do sometimes break, but a lot of times they never break. Like this one, I've had this knife for a long time. It's never broken an Omega spring. I have other knives. Yes, they have broken, but it's very easy to replace them. Don't not buy an access lock because Omega springs break. They're very easy to replace, and you can always send it in and get it replaced. But I also know that's still an argument. You know what you can also do? Buy memory wire and just make them yourself. But let's say you're like, nope, I'm not dealing with an access lock. Another great option is the TWOSUN TS380. This is a very robust knife. Now, one reason why I like the GRIPTILLIAN is the blade shape. It works great for, working use. The ergos are amazing. I love the ergos, and you can get a lot of pressure into your cuts. A robust grind. They used to be hollow grinds, and now they're flat grinds, but it's more of a tougher geometry blade where, yes, it slices just fine, especially if you lay back the edge, but it is a little bit more robust. This gets nice and thin behind the edge, but the grind and everything is very robust. So this is something you can be a little bit tougher on. The lockup is super strong, nice thick titanium frame lock. 14C28N, a very tough steel, and I love 14C. We'll go into that here in just a second, but the clip works great. Full titanium backspacer. The build is just very beefy and solid. So if you're looking for something a little tougher and you want a frame lock, that's a great option. You can get them for like $100 or less, like 70, 80 to $100. Another great option is the SPYDERCO SHAMAN, especially if you're wanting something a little more robust, but you don't want an access lock. This is fantastic. We got a compression lock, great locking system, nice tall flat grind while also being robust, nice and slicey while being very tough, and it doesn't have really thin geometry, but because of the full flat grind, it slices really good. So great ergos. And you can get aftermarket parts for most SPYDERCOs and most BENCHMADEs, but solid option here. They are a little expensive though, so I understand that this might be a little bit out of the price range for a lot of workers. So what I recommend the most, probably my one all-time #1 pick for a work knife, is the SPYDERCO MANIX. I do recommend the SPYDERCO PM2 as well. Both are great. The MANIX is more versatile between right and left-handed, and I love the locking system. It's a steel ball that's on a spring, not an Omega spring. This is a regular coil spring, so you don't have to worry about it breaking, but super solid lockup, rock solid lockup. It lasts forever, basically. It only gets stronger because the spring is pushing that ball up into the locking space. So theoretically, excuse me, it just keeps on getting stronger. The ergos are great. Slice is really good. 130 thousandths blade stock. Relatively thin behind the edge for the geometry. Tall flat grind. Blade shape is like one of the best blade shapes ever for work because you can get to the tip real easy. You just have a lot of the edge is just really good for work. It's the type of blade shape that's beautiful for work. Now, another great thing is SPYDERCO's heat treats. They do really good heat treats in 2022, and they have so many different options for the MANIX. You can get the lightweight. You can get all different kinds of steels. They're readily available. You can always get them, always replace them. You can get lots of aftermarket parts and build them up. Such good knives. I cannot recommend this one enough. Not enough, this one. So another option, PM2, like I said, you can get lots of aftermarket parts for these. They come in lots of different steels. The regular version right now comes in S45VN. Great steel. Like I said, they do great heat treats, and it has the compression lock. The one downfall is lefties. It's not the best for. However, you can get a CME from OCD for EDC for like $24, something like that. And they work great left-handed then. So, SPYDERCO PM2 and the SPYDERCO MANIX. Now, really quick, before we get to a couple budget options. Hogue knives, USA made, Hogue DEKA. I can't recommend it enough. You can get it very affordably, like $130 for the first version. They do have a new version that just came out with less screws and a deep carry clip. The SIG-SAUER K320, made by Hogue. Another great option, fantastic work knife, S30V and FRN, very similar to like the GRIPTILLIAN. So anything from Hogue, we already spoke about the Hogue Ritter, but Hogue knives are really good. You really can't go wrong with any of them. The access lock is really strong. They call it the Able lock. Super snappy, super smooth. This is very lightweight. I would definitely recommend this over the BenchMade Bug Out. It's kind of a better option to the BenchMade Bug Out. So if you like the BenchMade Bug Out or you're thinking about the BenchMade Bug Out, I would go with the HOGUE DEKA. Now the one thing is that if you're wanting to modify it with aftermarket parts, then you're probably going to want the BenchMade Bug Out because they have a lot more options available for that. But if you're just wanting a work knife, HOGUE DEKA. Great price, great materials, solid knife, great warranty. So now, really quick before we end it, budget knives. I know a lot of people cannot afford to spend more than $50 on a knife. I get that. So my number one recommended knife, if you need a knife, is going to be CIVIVI knives. They have good heat treats. Now we're going to get into that 14C28N. You can go with just about any CIVIVI knife, any one of them. Pick one, that's the one, because all of them are great. They all have great geometry, great action, great everything. So that's why I'm picking them, because excuse me, with other companies, I'd hesitate to say any one of them. But with CIVIVI, there really isn't one I wouldn't recommend if everything else checks the boxes for you. So this is the CIVIVI Brazen 14C28N. Now 14C28N, fantastic work knife steel. Why do I say that? It's a tough steel and it holds a great edge. It takes a very fine edge and it strops and hones back very easily. So if you have a knife or a steel that no matter what, it doesn't matter what steel we choose, and you have to do work that is going to tear the edge up no matter what. Doesn't matter what steel it is, your edge is going to get tore up. Well, then getting a steel that is going to get tore up regardless, but is going to be harder to sharpen, harder to hone back, harder to strop back is not going to be ideal. But getting a steel that is going to be easily sharpenable, easily honeable, and stroppable is what you're going to want. And in this case, 14C, especially done by CIVIVI with a good heat treat, is a great option. It sharpens up so easily, so you will, and it's a tough steel, so it's gonna be a little bit more. It's going to be better at not rolling and chipping and things like that. So then when you sharpen it, you're not going to have to do much. It's going to be very easy to sharpen since you're probably not going to have chips and rolls. However, if you are doing jobs where it tears up the steel no matter what, you're most likely going to get some microchipping regardless of what steel you pick. But at least in this case, it's easy to maintain. Now, they have a lot of knives right around the $40, $50 mark, and they are great. A lot of them are in D2, which, they still do a good job with their D2. So I can't say that about all budget companies, but CIVIVI, they definitely do a decent job, better than everybody else, in my opinion. So definitely a CIVIVI knife, the CIVIVI PRAXIS, the CIVIVI RIFFLE, the CIVIVI Brazen, so many different options. But that is the video. So I love you guys. Thank you guys for watching. Peace.